the reason for that start and stop was that my little screen here was telling me I was reaching some sort of a maximum size. And I don't want to have to start over from the beginning again, so I don't want to overextend my limit. Actually, I know I am overextending my limit for most videos. So let's see if we can speed things up just a little bit here. What's the act? Well, think about the three scenarios. Organ stuck mob. We can add to it a fourth scenario, the wartime commander. Focus on stuck in particular. People are in the cave. They're going to drown. Somebody's got some dynamite. He can use it to clear the way, but he has to blow up the person who's stuck, right? Who is blocking the way. What's the main immediate goal? What has to be done? Clearly, that person has to be killed. That person has to be gotten out of the way. None of the other alternatives, which some of you very creatively tried out in class, were going to work. That was the only possibility. So that has to be the main immediate goal. Think about, in a sense, how that corresponds to the main immediate goal of an abortion. What are you trying to do? You have to be trying to take out the life of the being which is in the womb. You have to be trying to kill that being which is in the womb. It's the very definition of an unsuccessful abortion is one that does not do that, right? So the main immediate goal, the act, has to be focused on clearly, right? The why, or the motive, or the intention could be very different for individuals. And that's not really part of our consideration here. Part of the reason that the why or the motive is not our main consideration is that in no way are we trying, and I mentioned this to you in number 21, in no way are we assessing here ethical responsibility on the part of the person, the woman, obtaining an abortion. That assessment is an entirely different kind of assessment and is really quite dependent upon the individual herself. As I put here in parentheses for number 21, it requires serious action, and certainly an abortion qualifies as that, full knowledge, and complete consent. Complete consent. I would say that number 2 and number 3, full knowledge and complete consent, are probably lacking in most instances, at least in many instances, where abortions are obtained. Not in all instances, certainly. Sometimes women know very well what they're doing and they consent very well to what they're doing. But not always, not frequently. Frequently there's fear, there's some level of ignorance, there's pressure of various sorts, there's a great anxiety about the unknown, there's the idea that there's no alternative. So I want to make it very clear that we're examining what abortion is from these two ethical viewpoints. We're not examining anything with regard to the guilt or innocence of a person obtaining or to a large extent even participating in various abortions. So that's not I'm not saying that's not an interesting and legitimate consideration, something to discuss, something to think about. That's just not what we're talking about right here. What we're talking about is the act itself, and we have to remember all three elements of the act. So the act, the intention, and the circumstances. Think about the example of stuck again, right? The act was blowing the person up so you could get out of the cave. The intention was so that you could get out of the cave, right? The intention was to keep yourself from drowning, not just because you didn't like the person who was stuck and you wanted to blow them up, right? And the circumstances were obviously what they were. You were in this, highly unusual situation, and one person had a stick of dynamite and so forth. Circumstances include consequences, as it mentions to you in number 3, and one consequence of a successful abortion is that the being in the womb is no longer alive. Now, you might wonder, And this is what I mentioned to you in number 24. Why do I keep saying being? Now, sometimes I do say child or baby or something or other. I might say fetus. I most often try to use the word being because it is pretty much an ethically neutral term, right? People have different words that they use for that being inside the womb of a woman. Some say fetus, some say human being, some say person, some people say blob of tissue, and some people even, believe it or not, say parasite, right? So just keep in mind that's the reason why I'm using the term being, all right? The voluntarist view is going to put a very high level of importance on when a human being becomes a person, right? Now then, I don't know exactly how many minutes we are in the two videos. This one right here is up to over 6 minutes, and the other one, I'm afraid, was pretty long also. These are some general points, as I mentioned to you in number 28. We're going to look more specifically at what Thompson says in her article and what Marquise says in his article in the next lecture or the next class, which would be the one scheduled for Friday the 17th. So, I'll see you then.